Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. Upper right hand corner we got Dewalt starting as the Gray Protoss. Bottom left hand corner we got Bonyth starting as the Blue Protoss. This is again Fighting Spirit Mania. Bonyth able to get himself on the scoreboard now, 1-3. And Dewalt, interestingly enough, I'm actually a little bit shocked he persisted with the 3-gate play, and I'm wondering if that's just knowing that he's got 3 games up in this scenario. If he's kind of doing treating this as I'm sure both of these guys were treating this as practice at some stage, because it's like, man, so many best of 7s, but I'm wondering if Dewalt is in particular, now that he's up 3-1, treating it a little bit more like a practice scenario, because I would have expected him to transition to a Nexus a lot more rapidly rather than trying to sneak under and make the 3-gate happen. I also wonder if it's one of those things where he's kind of playing mind games with Bonyth over the long term to try to do an uncharacteristic thing to kind of open up build variants down the line, because it's like, okay, well, on occasion I will try to box out information and go for some pseudo all-in ish build against you that puts me way behind. So it's also possible that it's kind of like the poker hand thing, right? Where it's like sometimes you play it's when you're weak you play strong, when you're strong you play weak, sort of thing. And sometimes when you're in like when you have chips to lose, or when you're trying to set up like a hand down the line, you make someone think, when you're playing actually really tight, you throw out a really bad hand when it's a smaller pot, for example, to make people think you're playing a little bit looser, and then you get them to go all in on double aces with you. Logic behind that along those lines, but in StarCraft, that's the best metaphor I can think of. I'm sure that's a metaphor that works for other places. Unfortunately for Bonyth, Dewalt going for the 10-12 gate here, and he's doing so at cross positions. I'm curious if he goes for the 3 zealots and gas exit as well. He did go for a cross map scout, interestingly enough here, which is a lot more typical, honestly, with a 2-gate opener. So I'm a little bit shocked and surprised, and I'm wondering if he was doing that to... I'm wondering if he was doing the mind game of like, okay, if Bonyth is going for a cross map scout, this is the scenario. And I think Bonyth actually, let's see, okay, that's unfortunate. He's going bottom right now. Getting that probe in early is of huge benefit. It looks like we do have an initial zealot queued up, by the way. And we're probably going to have, that pylon drop on the corner. So Dewalt going to be able to get in the base, get the scouting information, and also deny the scouting information. Now, does he immediately... So this is where Bonyth just drops that gas as soon as he's scouted his opponent. Sometimes I think he even delays the 2nd and 3rd zealot based on positioning. But it looks like, okay, Dewalt has queued up the 3, has not yet dropped the gas. Yeah, so instead, drop the... Okay, now going to go ahead and drop that gas. Still happening. 3 zealots are away, much like torpedoes, making their way across that map. That zealot trying to chase around. Having this probe in here to disrupt the ramp can be very, very beneficial in the space of this. Range queued up for Bonyth in the meantime, and that probe is going to be able to sneak in underneath. We have nothing else queued up on that gateway line. So there is one nice counter in the space of this sometimes is going for manor pylons, but it looks like Bonyth recognizing, okay, 2-gate is just going to draw back in the space of this. Now I'm curious to see what Bonyth's defense is, honestly. It looks like he's just going to queue it up. He is going to let that Dragoon get the way out. And he's going to have a good distance to tack some damage on that initial Dragoon. So just going to rely on micro. I like Dewalt stepping that Zealot out, so it's not the front Zealot in the engagement attacks to follows, though. So, and a nice spread there by Bonyth. Ooh, and Dewalt actually glitching out a little bit. So Bonyth actually executing this defense really, really well. I have to say, loses 1 zealot at the ramp. Usually 3 zealots make it all the way in. The Dragoon's very heavily damaged. This zealot's heavily damaged, and this Dragoon going to be able to block the gap as well, based on the construction. So a masterful defense thus far. 1 probe running out of the way. So no probes lost thus far from Bonyth. First probe lost there. Is he going to get a second? No, 1 probe lost, but Dewalt's still up 3 workers in the space of this, just because of how that build order plays out. But I got to say, that was a really solid defense from Bonyth. Now he's got 2 units that'll be able to recharge shields pretty adequately. And might be able to... We'll see how that turns around. We got 2 zealots and 2 dragoons up on the high ground. And are we going to see a robotics follow-up in the meantime? One thing that Dewalt is going to have to weather is that range advantage for a considerable period of time. I will say it's kind of interesting where this plays a little bit differently, because it is cross-spawn, where I feel like having that earlier range is not as consequential. Also, just pulling that probe in to check whether there's a natural expansion, finds nothing. It is going to go ahead and back out. So going to recognize that it wasn't 1 gate into expand as far as the follow-up, which will help him hopefully prepared. This probe, though, on the hunt, wants to catch and get some damage done. He needs 2 shots. A little bit of a dodge right there. Oh, this is close. So mid-map, he needs to be... Oh, 1 shot there. Now he needs 2 more shots with the shields. Regeneration. There's 1. Oh! Got him. Nice assassination right there. And some Dragoons filing out. Unfortunately, probe died. For all that work, the probe dies mid-map on the opposite end. But it was a good victory. So they were talking about this in the ASL cast. If you guys, I highly recommend everybody check out both casts. I won't play favorites between Nyokin and Raz and Tastosis. But Nyokin and Raz were talking about how, I think it was Nyokin and Raz. They're talking about how workers, you can tell how good a player is by how often they're able to get those hits off at maximum distance in many instances. Range finishing now for Dewalt. Things stabilizing a little bit. Dewalt's still up a 4 worker count, 2 gate robotics. Opposite side, it looks like Dewalt is skipping. Well, never mind. He's got the robotics up, but went ahead and dropped the Nexus in the space of this. And dropped that Nexus before Observatory, interestingly enough. So Bonyth getting a faster Nexus up in the space of this by a large margin, though. By a large margin. So should be able to catch up in workers in between. Dewalt head in supply, but that supply again is just in the worker count, which should equalize based on this Nexus timing difference. I think Dewalt might end up with a little bit earlier information though, because the Observatory, actually it might end up canceling out based on, because this is kind of that inverse timing that we saw from the previous match, where that Observer might end up in the base right as the Observer on the opponent's field is spawning. And it depends on positioning of the Dragoons. Actually, I'll end up much earlier. I think Observers build in like 22 seconds, something like that. And it takes about, I think, 40 seconds, something like that, to traverse from top right to bottom left. 34 or 40 seconds, I should look that up more definitively. Dewalt still maintains that supply lead, but you can see the worker count dead even, supply count actually dead even in the space of this. And all of a sudden, it's like equilibrium across both players. Probes just making their way out. Going to go ahead and provide some a little bit of an earlier second gas here for Bonyth, though, so he's going to be able to tack a little bit more gas in between, and has taken the brief worker lead. But we're basically back at, I don't want to say ground zero, because it's like, but point being, things are dead even right this second. They're very, very close. And I expect them to continue. Supply very, very close. The distance makes it so there's not a lot that can happen in between. And both players look like they're just going to go for a longer macro game off the 2 gate. And not even moving their observers out, actually. So this observer, I take it back. This observer getting caught on that edge. Does Dewalt turn around? Okay, doesn't turn around with this initial observer. He's just going to show his natural expansion. That's not what I wanted to see. He is positioning these Dragoons to go ahead and push that observer back. Both players queuing up range, by the way. This observer and Dragoons, knowing that there was an observer out in this field, looking, making their way out to the hunt. Dewalt looks like he wants to try to make his way mid-map to the doodad so that he could escape if he needs to. But Bonyth, man, with the psychic play, finding the precise positioning, and I like how he didn't dedicate all of his attack force. Once again, just showed about 1 gate worth of units. Heavy on the hunt to try to get it, but can Dewalt get out? Nope. Loses an observer mid-map, which isn't nothing. Knowing where your being able to track enemy movement mid-map, having that extra observer means basically the way it stacks up is every observer you have to build means you weren't building a shuttle or you weren't building a reaver in that period of time, so it ends up stacking up. Earlier, a gateway flood, actually. We're seeing 6 gateways on Bonyth's side of the map. It's going to be a lighter 4 gateways on Dewalt's side of the map. So Dewalt thinking about going for maybe a tech play, we'll have to see, but going for maybe a more passive defense, potentially, at the cross position, and thinking about grabbing a 3rd a little bit earlier. Never mind. He's tacking on his 5th and 6th gateway, just doing a little bit later as part of that build order. I was actually a little bit surprised. I was wondering, like, okay, are you going to fill this in with DTs? What are you going to fill that in with? Forge dropping a little bit earlier. We have that Scarab damage upgrade. Pretty typical. Bonyth was able to slip some Dragoons out here to the 3 o'clock location. That's going to draw some other troops out of position. This is kind of risky here on Dewalt's part. Also not getting anything out of it, drawing these troops out of position. If there were troops mid-position here, I guess there's a pylon in the way to disrupt some of that shot. The Reavers there on that ramp line. but Bonyth starting to move out and get aggressive. He's already got a probe staged up to the 9 o'clock. I think he's thinking of, okay, if I can win a good battle or fight here, maybe I can make something happen. He's got some Dragoons versus Dragoons here at the 3 o'clock. And unfortunately for Dewalt, moving, well, actually unfortunate for Bonyth now. Regathering. I think he's going to have a larger attack force. His shuttle was over by the 3 o'clock as both are meeting mid-map. And it just feels like, yeah, just kind of mirrored across the board. Defensive pylon there at the 9 o'clock location. Dewalt speeding forward to go ahead and check it out. But that shuttle, is it going to get picked off? No. On the low corner, both Reavers drop. The Reaver's not planted yet for Bonyth, and that can be a big advantage. The shuttle taking a volley of shots, so the Reaver stranded, but was able to pick off the Reaver opposite side. The Reaver's trying to walk out of the rest of the fight, and once everything's left, it looks like there's more ground troops now left for Bonyth, able to wipe out that shuttle, so it's not going to get its way out. And Dewalt recognizing that he's not going to be able to get out of this fight, standing and fighting for a minute to try to get as much damage done as he possibly can. So complete army reset, and at the end of it, it looks like the supply advantage is going to be in Bonyth's favor by, well, by, I want to say a handful of Dragoons, but we have a lot of troops waiting back at the natural expansion. Dewalt was somehow with a bit of supply lead, and that's a raw supply lead rather than workers. He's running straight into a Reaver, took a big shot, and I do believe that Dewalt was able to check that 9 o'clock location and see that base built there. Unfortunately, the way things have played out, I don't think he can do a lot about it. And it looks like we have the Dragoons going ahead and moving up to that 3 o'clock location to kill the worker. So that big army engagement win basically gave Bonyth a positional win. And in other instances, that wouldn't have meant much. But in this instance, it's going to open up him to take that 9 o'clock and deny the 3 o'clock to Dewalt. Dewalt starting to proceed forward, looking to hunt this Dragoon force. Unfortunately, he's folding into it a little bit smaller. Was able to pick off the Observer in the midst of it. I'm not sure he's getting the better focus fire. Looks like he had, never mind, much better focus fire. More Dragoons, another group moving up, and a Zealot also making its way across. Bonyth waiting on Zealot leg speed and +1 weapons. Dewalt re-fanning out, getting underneath the doodads to rely on the misfire as Bonyth is pushing up, but that's not giving him an advantage across the reinforcement point. He's reinforcing now. And it looks like with that, should be able to push that army back, which is going to give him potentially that 3 o'clock base safely. It looks like he was grabbing some resources to do it, but he's not going to be able to stop that 9 o'clock base. That 9 o'clock base is already built. Now, what he can do, though, is if he can get some units in position between there, he might be able to kill the workers as they're making the way across. Unfortunately, so diving into it, knowing the timing, now he's just going to hold the high ground. Unfortunately, I think he just donated these Reavers in the shuttle in the space of this. Counter Reavers make the way up. Is he going to get a shot on the worker line, though? Huge shot on the worker line, just as he died, and is now going to back off. That was a massive amount of workers to attack, and that actually, well, okay, I think at the end of the day, Bonyth will still end up with more workers across 3, but with this position, still might be able to cut off more reinforcements, making there, or more saturation at the 9 o'clock, attacking that low ground. Shuttle up there as well. And we have the Observer also for Dewalt near that natural expansion, seeing as the troops are moving out, so he knows when to get out of dodge. In the space of all this, that was at a +1 weapons deficit and also a Scarab upgrade damage deficit, by the way, and Zealot leg speed queued up there from Bonyth. So keep that in mind. This Observer that was at the rear of the base now folding back, trying to get eyes on Dewalt's army. 24 supply lead, by the way, which is plenty to negate that +1 weapon and potentially that Scarab upgrade damage, depending on how Bonyth utilizes that shuttle. 3 o'clock base now up. As that finishes, there's still a 2 worker lead here from Dewalt, but you also have to take into account the transfer time for the probes to get out to that 3 o'clock location, and that is basically what Dewalt is staging to try to defend right this second, and what Bonyth is crashing down to potentially do. Also, we have a latent worker top left. So are we going to see another Nexus grab? That would be a little bit crazy. Dewalt finding that army, trying to back out. Probes are managing to get into the 3 o'clock. We're going to have a pylon blockade and a cannon in between. Bonyth, rather than attacking into the high ground, crashing straight into that army. The Reavers could actually just pick up and go for an assault there at the 3 o'clock, and I'm not sure whether Dewalt got speed or not. Did he pick off the shuttle? I think he picked off the shuttle as well. So should be able to get a victory here, honestly, by getting the Reavers in, taking down that cannon, taking out the workers. And the best Dewalt can do is maybe go for a counterattack at the main, which is it looks like what he's doing right this second. And in a base traded situation, Well, we'll see if that works out. He's already got some High Templar on the low ground. I don't know if he upgraded Psystorm. So Dewalt recognizing he's going to be down a base. Ooh, we do need that 6 o'clock Nexus to get canceled, I think, for Bonyth to keep in this. Archons are going to morph. That's not going to be a lot of support. Reinforcements actually cutting off Bonyth. The troops trying to dive back to provide some support. Dewalt loses one Reaver and that shuttle, trying to cut off the lane to take the Reavers out of that fight. It did get the shuttle down, but there's still 3 Reavers on the ground. And keep in mind, they hit very, very hard. Natural expansion taking a lot of damage in the space of this, and Bonyth has gone in full defensive retreat, actually, in the space of this. Dewalt's still down workers, though, keep in mind, so he needs this fight to work. He needs this fight to work for him, and now backing out into Bonyth's army mid-map, and Bonyth is happy to take this exchange because he's still got that 6 o'clock base coming online. Dark Templars flooding out. Does the Observer out here, is it going to get picked off? The Observer's still standing. DTs still do a lot of damage. Never mind, the Observer now picked off right as the DTs are arriving. So that's going to be a dead army out in the forward front. Dewalt didn't get enough workers to really stabilize or equalize. And it looks like he's standing and sacrificing a lot of these Dragoons just to try to stay standing. So down, I think he's still down +1. Okay, he's got +1 weapons there. +2 weapons about to finish here for Bonyth. The Observer's still here at the natural expansion. Looks like it abandoned its friends. Workers transferring out of the main to the 6 o'clock. This would be a very difficult position to lose here from Bonyth. Although Dewalt making good play of it, finding the 6 o'clock base, and is in the way of the workers potentially to get some worker damage. It looks like the Reaver, there is a Dark Templar that managed to make its way into the 3 o'clock. And wow, actually going to make it out. That's going to cause an empty flood there at the 3 o'clock location. But Dewalt just, I don't think he's done enough to stay in this here. Reaver's still active. That 6 o'clock base has been cleared out. So now we got the 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock and a dead Nexus at the 3 o'clock. So Dewalt back down to a single base. Just as natural expansion as the main is mined out. And I think that's GG. I think it would be fine for him to GG right here. Especially going up against +2 weapons, Templar tech, everything else that's out in there. And Bonyth actually might expand again. At the top left, Bonyth just making sure, because he didn't see a GG, that there isn't a hidden Nexus out in the field. He might want to check that 12 o'clock base as well. But doing due diligence, Dark Templar very good as scouting units as well. Sneaky spies in the back lines. Dewalt drawing that Observer out, might need it in upcoming fights. We have 2 Dragoons just in case there was a Reaver that was going to scoot around and try to create some damage. But right now it's just an issue of Bonyth finding Dewalt's army, which he has right this second, and picking a fight and wiping it out. 2 Reavers dropping on the lower edge, and look at that. Look at the Reaver placement of those shots in the full pile, the center location of all those Dragoons, which is just shredding those Dragoons on the south. That was really choice damage right there from Bonyth. So doing the damage he wanted to, gonna back up, wait for reinforcements. That was some beautiful Reaver shot positioning right there. Just gonna invite Dewalt to go ahead and try to attack the 6 o'clock so that he's got that army pinned in. So it's like, yeah, go ahead and attack there. So now that I got you boxed in and you have nowhere to run, was kind of the movement. Archon with +2 weapons on top of the Dragoons, which is never a good sign. The Observer did get picked off. I don't think there's Dark Templar coming in to reinforce. And Bonyth actually losing a bit of the exchange as far as reinforcement point. There are 2 cannons here at the 6 o'clock, and there's just a much stronger economy. Dewalt actually, despite everything, holding a pretty good army size and actually able to get underneath. The thing is even if he wipes out the 6 o'clock base, it doesn't matter. Because yes, he takes out the 6 o'clock. Yes, he takes out some workers, but Bonyth is still mining off 2 bases regardless. In comparison, shuttle making its way out. It does have a single Reaver in it. Single Dragoon trying to blockade and create some time. So Dewalt making some action of it, but it's just a matter of Bonyth wiping out these attack forces here. More Dragoons dropping. There's GG. I think Dewalt recognizing that he wasn't able to get another base up. And he already knows about that 9 o'clock. So, but making a fight of it to the end. Bonyth now has 2 score on the board. Dewalt is still up 3 in a set. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.